FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan, and I'm here with Dominic Mauro. We've got two UFC events to talk about this weekend. The first of which is happening Friday night on FX. We have UFC on FX4, which is supposed to, I guess, be the trailer for UFC 147.
Yeah. So this was going to be a commercial for the really exciting Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen rematch, which due to some weird scheduling stuff with the UN being in Rio for some big conference thing and hotel rooms being scarce. I know.
Yeah, who are those people?
I know. Why do they need all these hotel rooms? No, these people want to see Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen fights. They would not have enough hotel rooms. Cards been shuffled. This is now the trailer for the finale to UFC Brazil, or the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, which I know you're looking forward to.
Right.
I can't wait to see that Brazilian guy I've never heard of fight that other Brazilian guy I've never heard of with subtitles. That's going to be just thrilling.
Right. But let's start with UFC on FX4, which kicks off with Sam Stout versus Spencer Fisher. We have two lightweights. This is a grudge match.
Yeah. This is the rubber match. These guys have had a couple of fights. The first one was pretty okay, but the second one of the best slugfests in the UFC history. I mean, it's maybe not quite up there with Bonner and Griffin, but good stuff. Like, it was a real fun fight. This fight, other than that, really doesn't have any lasting consequences. Neither of these guys is even close to being, anything of note in the lightweight division. They're certainly not they're a few wins away from being gatekeepers at best. These guys have a lot of UFC experience between them, something like 28 fights. 19 of them have gone to decisions, so if you need a bathroom break in the middle of the card, this would be the one to go with, because it's going to go for a while. So really not an awful lot of interesting stuff here, other than what's going to happen in the cage between two guys who are really evenly matched. You're going to see some good kickboxing, maybe a couple of scrambles, but for the most part, expect a slugfest. Okay,
and then we have a Hatsuyoki, the Iron Broom, fighting a guy that's not Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and that pisses me off. Like, Hatsuyoki, he's won championships in TKO, in Sengoku, in Shudo. I mean, he goes around the world collecting these belts. His closet has to be huge. And now he comes to the UFC. He has a tune-up fight before he fights Jose Aldo for the championship against a guy named George Roop, and he looks like garbage. So he gets a second tune-up fight. He looks better in that. Bart Polashevsky, he looked fantastic in that fight. He still wants another tune-up fight. So he gets another tune-up fight against
Ricardo Lamas. No relation to Lorenzo Lamas, the Highlander?
I don't think so. No. There can be two of those guys.
Right.
And so Hioki, this is his third tune-up fight. What do you want to say? The guy is masterful ground game. He changes submissions effortlessly. He's relentless at attacking on the ground against people who aren't named George Roop.
So this is going to be his strategy then, right? To get the fight to the ground?
Well, see, I don't know, because Ricardo Lamas is a very strong wrestler. Ricardo Lamas is given up a significant reach advantage to Hioki, and Hioki is very comfortable on his feet. He knows how to fight long. He's a rangy fighter when he strikes. Not the most technical, but there are like 5 guys in the UFC who would be called technical strikers. So for Hioki, I don't know if he spends a lot of time trying to get this fight to the ground, or even if he can. I mean, I think Lamas might have the takedown defense to stay on his feet for the most part. But if this fight does go to the ground and Lamas is on his back, he is in huge trouble, because Hatsuyoki is legit on the ground. And after this, we might actually see him fight Jose Aldo.
Maybe. I actually did meet Lorenzo Lamas once. Oh. Several years ago when I was in college. I was working at the Gap during winter break, and he came in with his kids. So not only the Highlander, but a good father.
I thought you were going to say he came in with his sword.
No.
Much less cool.
Yeah, that would have been pretty awesome. And then we have the final fight of the night, Gray Maynard versus Clay Guida.
Yeah, this is the main event of the UFC on FX4 card. I really got to shorten these titles. This is the main event, 5 rounds. Gray Maynard, he's probably one of the best gatekeepers in the UFC in any division. He had an 8-fight winning streak in the lightweight division over guys like Frankie Edgar, Nate Diaz, Jim Miller, Kenny Florian. I mean, guys who are some of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame when they retire, and Gray Maynard beat all of them. So he's a fantastic lightweight, very big, very strong, hits like a fire truck on dynamite. I don't even know. He's huge when he throws punches. I mean, he almost knocked out Frankie Edgar 3 times in the last 2 of their fights, neither of which he managed to win. So Gray Maynard, he's trying to get back on the winning track after those couple of fights with Frankie Edgar that didn't go his way.
So what's Clay Guida's path to victory? Does he have one?
Well, I don't know, because Clay Guida's, you know, he's a really one-dimensional fighter. And for a guy with 15 fights in the UFC, you'd think he would have sort of developed a second game. But Clay Guida doesn't have any striking, like on the feet or as ground and pound. Like Clay Guida, please learn to strike. Like his wrestling is pretty good. I mean, Clay Guida's mostly notable for his incredibly frenetic pace. I mean, he's like a caveman on meth. He just will not stop bouncing around and you know, going for takedowns. And eventually, guys usually, you know, they tire out and they can't fight him off, and then that's when he starts his ground and pound. It just doesn't. It doesn't look good. It's just not good. It doesn't work. It doesn't hurt. Yeah,
like a kitten trying to swim.
It's like a kitten. It's, you know, he just, I don't know. I really, you know, this is a big step up for Clay Guida. I mean, Clay Guida has fought really tough competition before, and he's not come out on top. You know, he's also fought some competition like Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis, and just laid on them and won a decision. So, you know, if laying on a dude doesn't work, Clay Guida is not going to win the fight. And it's not going to work against Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard is bigger, Gray Maynard is stronger, and Maynard, you know, he's probably got better wrestling, and his gas tank is not going to fade. I mean, Gray Maynard has gone 10 rounds with Frankie Edgar in the last couple of years, and you know, he didn't fade as much as Clay Guida is going to need him to fade. So I don't really see Clay Guida's path to victory here. It's certainly not on the feet, and I don't really think he has anything to trouble Gray Maynard on the ground. He might be able to catch Maynard in a submission in one of the scrambles. If he can force some scrambles, he might be able to snatch a submission. But Maynard's pretty savvy. He doesn't get into trouble on the ground very often. So I just don't see Clay Guida winning this fight.
Okay, and then next up, the next night, on Saturday night, we have UFC 147, and one of the fights that we want to talk about is Fabricio Verdum versus Mike Russo. Yeah,
of the 10 or so fights on the card, we're going to talk about the two that have anyone's heard of, because they weren't on the reality show. So Fabricio Verdum, he is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters in the heavyweight division, I think anywhere in the world. He's phenomenal on the ground. Once the fight gets to the ground. If you watch his fight with Alistair Overeem, you saw Verdum sort of flop to the ground anytime Overeem got near him, and just literally begging Overeem to come down to the ground and follow him, and you know, let's fight on the ground. Brazilians good at the jiu-jitsu, not so good at getting the fight to the part where you use the jiu-jitsu. And Verdum is you know, the rule that proves the rule, as it were. He's 2-3 in the UFC. He's you know, been up and down, in and out of the UFC. He's back in the UFC after submitting the legendary Fedor Emelianenko a couple of fights ago, before he fought Overeem. And you know, he also fought Roy Nelson, and he looked like a just phenomenal kickboxer. It seems like it's a very schizophrenic performance you get from Verdum. Either he knows he's outclassed, like against Alistair Overeems of the world, or he knows that he outclasses the other guy, like against the Roy Nelsons of the world. And I think in this fight, you know, he's fighting Mike Russo,
a guy who's quietly gone 4-0 versus the heavyweights.
Yeah, no, Mike Russo, he's picked up a good winning streak. I mean, he's something like 15-1 in his career. So he's not fought anyone good, except for Sergei Karatanov back in like 2007, and he lost in the first round. So this is a huge step up for Mike Russo, and I think Verdum's going to know that he's got the edge in the striking. For Russo, that might not be a bad thing. I mean, Mike Russo is most famous for that performance against Todd Duffy, where he looked like Homer Simpson, just getting pounded in the face for 3 rounds until he came back with this hilarious walk-off knockout victory against Duffy. So Russo can soak up the punishment. He definitely can. He's got a chin like Roy Nelson, one of Roy Nelson's chins, and Russo's going to need Verdum to tire out. You know, Russo's also got some really underrated jiu-jitsu skills, but against a guy like Verdum, that's just not going to cut it. I don't think Verdum's going to submit Russo, but Russo's definitely got nothing to offer, nothing to threaten Verdum on the ground with. So I think this is Verdum's fight to lose. I think if he shows up and he knows that he's the better fighter, then he wins the fight. But for Verdum, it's all the mental game, I think.
And then in the main event, we have a Silva, a Brazilian Silva, but not the Silva that you were hoping that we'd see.
No, this is Vanderlei Silva, the ghost of Vanderlei Silva, who's something like 3-7 in the last 6 years. I mean, Vanderlei should have hung it up years ago. He's not the Silva I'm looking for, but you know, it's hard to hate Vanderlei Silva. He seems like a really nice guy. He's a legend. He is a walking legend. He's Hall of Fame material. for sure. He's a devastating kickboxer. He's got this brawling, hyper-aggressive style that, you know, without any defense whatsoever, that relies on him having a really good chin. And he did have a really good chin earlier in his career, before he kept getting hit in the chin for his career. And now, you know, I think he flinches when people turn on the ceiling fan. I mean, that breeze might be enough to knock him out.
And is Rich Franklin, his opponent, bring a ceiling fan into the ring?
Well, no. I mean, Rich Franklin, he's if he's smart. I don't know if those are banned in Brazil, but if ceiling fans are banned in Brazil, Rich Franklin still has his footwork, his head movement, his technical striking. He's good at keeping the range. He's good at moving side to side, much better moving side to side than Wanderlei Silva has ever been. These guys have actually fought once before, back in 2009 in Germany. And the story of the fight was really Rich Franklin's ability to keep Silva from ever throwing combos and from ever landing anything significant, except for, you know, a couple of times in the second round. I mean, Franklin really dictated how and when the exchanges took place, and he throws straight shots, and Silva throws a lot of hooks, and you know, Franklin's just faster. Franklin's aged a lot better than Wanderlei has. I mean, it's so. I think this is Franklin's fight again. I mean, Wanderlei Silva has not gotten any younger in the last 3 years. He suffered some brutal knockouts in the last 3 years. Franklin is stepping in on relatively short notice for Vitor Belfort, who would have probably put Wanderlei Silva in a coma. So this is not the worst case scenario for Wanderlei Silva. He's fighting a guy who didn't have a lot of time to get in shape, but I think that Franklin retires Wanderlei Silva the way he retired Chuck Liddell, hopefully.
Okay, and so the main event of this card was supposed to be Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Yeah, when are we going to see that?
That's going to be July 7th. It was also going to be in a gigantic soccer stadium in Rio, I think, before the UN came to town and took up all the hotel rooms. And
right.
But now they're moving it to Las Vegas, and they're gonna. It's not going to be 80,000 screaming Brazilian fans out for Chael Sonnen's blood, which is frankly disappointing, but it's going to be a great fight. July 7th, we're going to have a whole preview of that and you know, rundown of the first fight and, you know, Chael Sonnen's antics.
Great. So thanks for tuning in, and tune in next week when we talk about Silva and Sonnen. Take care.